We talk all things NBA and NFL. Be sure to follow us on Spotify at Zone Defense Podcast, on Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and hit the subscribe button down below because it really helps out our channel a lot. Also, let us know your thoughts on the John Gruden resignation this past week. Today, we will be doing our Week 6 NFL game picks. How's it going, Roman?
I'm good, Chris. Drew is unfortunately not here today, but all three of us did pretty good in the pick'em last week, all having, I think, two, three, or four wrong for the three of us. So very, very well done. Obviously, you won the week. Still pulling that lead back into second place now. Drew's now in the cellar. I'm still up front by only a couple. Well, I'm excited to get into week 6. I mean, it's the first week of bye week, so I'm looking forward to talking about them with you.
Yeah, with the bye weeks comes some interesting stuff, especially for the fantasy players out there. Bye weeks are always, especially in week 7, which I'm really not
Yeah.
looking forward to because I'm going to be unlocking the first 3 tight end lineup in fantasy history, most likely, because we play in a double flex league. So I'm very curious to see how that works out. But it is 3 pretty darn good tight ends. So I think it'll be all right. But let's jump into the news and notes now to start. This past week was just filled with injuries all week. I mean, this was a brutal, especially during the late games. Really, a lot of injuries. We had Russ go down, surgery on his finger. He's going to miss a lot of time. Joe Burrow got a throat contusion, which that's very interesting, but it sounds like he's going to be all right. Daniel Jones took a scary, honestly, the whole. I mean, you could have the whole Giants roster on here. I mean, we pretty much do. Danny Dimes suffered the concussion clearly on that. Saquon with a brutal ankle injury, but it sounds like it was just a sprain. He's probably going to be all right in a few weeks. Kenny G hyperextended his knee. Kadarius Toney even got injured as well, and also tried to punch some dude with the helmet on as well. But and had a very nice game and I've never really been a Toney guy, but he was awesome last week, so I do respect that. And if he's active, I mean, he's going to be a beast again next week for sure. But Fields go down with a minor injury as well. I believe similarly to Kenny G, hyperextended his knee, but he was able to get back out there. So wouldn't expect too much there. Lance, they got a bye week, so I'm not really too worried about him. He'll probably be all right. And it might be Jimmy G starting anyway because he didn't look all that great. Uh, Clyde, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this one's bad. He sprained his MCL. It looked really bad when it happened, but luckily it's just an MCL sprain. He's gonna miss some time, but it's not as bad as it could be. And they're potentially gonna trade for Marlon Mack. Maybe I've seen some rumors about that. That's interesting for sure. Darrell Williams, I expect him to step up for sure. So they might be all right. They really don't even need to run the ball anyways. And they also need to find somebody to play defense on the Chiefs, or they're not going to make the playoffs this year. So we'll have to see kind of what they do there going through this injury and everything. But Breek also with an injury, Tyreek Hill, but he sounds like he's going to be all right. And then lastly, Juju shoulder injury out for the season. Ragnow also injured for the season. So a lot of bad injuries this week. There's definitely some more that aren't on the list. So if we think of them, we can always say them later. But a lot of injuries for sure. And then obviously the big news is the email investigation on the Washington football team really got John Gruden pretty much fired. I mean, he resigned, but it wasn't on his own terms. Obviously, a lot of racist, homophobic, sexist comments, everything from from A to Z. Honestly, stuff back from 10 years ago, stuff as recent as a few years ago. I mean, it sucks for them, but and for him, but you got to know that this stuff can get out there, and if it does, you're screwed, and that's what happened to him. Sure, he won't be the last one, and he definitely wasn't the first one. So, you know, hopefully you enjoy the unemployment line, John. But lastly, not really a big news thing, but I guess kind of talking about the Chiefs as well. They really haven't been great. 2-3 on the season, kind of pathetic to be honest. Another really piss poor showing this week against the Buffalo Bills, which I will answer the question right now. They are definitely the favorites in the AFC. They have dominated every team besides the Steelers in Week 1, which I'm honestly still baffled at how they lost that game. But since then, they've been absolutely dominant. They've just been running through teams, and they just destroyed the Chiefs in their home stadium with the rain. Josh Allen looked unbelievable. They're the favorites in the AFC. They're the favorites to win the Super Bowl right now, and there's no question about it. It's them. It's nobody else. I like the Chargers. I like the Ravens. There's a couple other teams that I also like, but it's them.
Yeah, I completely agree. Bills definitely top of the AFC. I would even put the Chargers ahead of them, since they're currently leading that division even. So those two I'm looking at, they're very explosive offenses they got going this past week, and even Baltimore you can put in that conversation. A lot tougher for the Chiefs this year than it will be in past years. So there's definitely a hole they have to climb out of. They might not even win the division, in which case they're a lot more susceptible, which we kind of already knew based off their losses so far.
Let's jump into the pick 'em now without any further ado here. We as we mentioned at the top of the show, a couple bye weeks now starting, especially like I mentioned, next week's gonna suck big time for bye weeks. Not gonna be a lot of games next week. It's gonna be really weird. But we got Atlanta the Jets coming off that London game. It's good scheduling right there. The Saints and then also the Niners, which the Niners, this is coming at a good time because they got a lot of injuries right now. And guys, Kittle, Ayuk's probably still a little banged up. Jimmy G, Trey Lance, they got plenty of injuries. So this is definitely coming at a good time for them to try to get back on track after taking a few L's there. But let's jump into the first matchup here. And it's actually one I'm pretty excited for here. Tampa Bay going on the road to play the Philadelphia Eagles. Honestly, I was impressed with the Eagles' comeback last week. It was an ugly game against Carolina, but they were able to get the job done. Tampa Bay started off kind of slow in that game to me, but they were able to really put the smackdown on the Dolphins in the late third, early fourth quarter, and really blew them out with Jacoby Brissett. I mean, that's what they were supposed to do as one of the best teams in the league, but they did the job. So both teams coming off a nice win. Roman, I'm going to start this one. I actually think this is going to be a good game. It's in Philly. I don't think Tampa Bay is going to come in there and just walk all over this team. This Philly team is desperate for a win. They really need one. I think they could pull it off, but I am going to go with Tampa Bay. It's tempting because I do like the Eagles. I like Jalen Hurts. I think, he didn't play good at all last week. I think he's going to come out and torch this Tampa Bay secondary. They don't run the ball anyway, so the fact that Tampa Bay has a good run defense really doesn't matter. I think they're really going to compete in this game, Roman. I don't know about you, but I really see this being a good game. Could end up being a shootout if Hurts can hold his own against that, banged up, pretty bad Buccaneers secondary.
Yeah, it could surely be that kind of game. Philadelphia, I thought they were kind of sloppy at times. Him and Sam Darnold on the other side of the ball, they didn't live up to the game I thought it was going to be. It could have been a high-scoring game, but I was the only one who chose Philly to win that, so I'm a little happy with myself. With Tampa, though, I'm very happy that Mike Evans got those 2 late touchdowns to the game that helped my fantasy team quite a bit. So I certainly can't complain. I agree with everything you said, though. I think it'll be a good game. Dallas Goedert, though, he was put on the COVID list, so
Yep,
I don't think he will be
he
playing in
won't
this
be.
game. So that'll be pretty huge for him. However, I think there's a lot of fantasy viable options in this game. It should be back and forth. I'm gonna go with Tampa as well, though.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one for sure. Recording a little bit earlier this week, so maybe this will get up before this game actually happens. Usually it doesn't happen like that, but we'll jump into the next game here. Cincinnati, Detroit. In Detroit, I'm sure you're happy about this one in Motown. Cincy coming off a tough loss against Green Bay, a game they really should have won. Uh, 5 missed field goals with a chance to win the game starting in the fourth quarter. That was really an impressive stat from both these two kickers and Crosby, and I think McPherson's or McPherson is the Cincy kicker. But I'll let you start this one off as the resident Lions fan here. Is this the week the Lions get win number 1?
I don't think so. I will go with Cincinnati, but I guess it's never out of the ordinary for the Lions to be in a competitive game. I mean, obviously the roster is talentless, especially with all the injuries. Ragnow out for the year, Okora out for the year. Cephas also might be done for the year. But for some reason, like we say they're going to get blown out like 30 or whatever. We thought they would be a bad loss last week to the Vikings, but somehow they just kept it close. I guess they do that every game, and it's just good to see at least. So I don't doubt this could be another close game down to the wire. Um, I will say though that Cincinnati, I think they're a lesser opponent than Minnesota, although they did beat them week 1. They do have some similar weapons. They have 2 good wide receivers, 3 good wide receivers that we have to look out for. Their defense, I think it might be worse than the Vikings. So I think it will be another close game. But like I mentioned earlier, I'm taking Cincy.
Yep, I'm also going to take Cincy. I think the Lions have a chance in this game, but since he's a good team, they need to win now after that loss. Try to keep pace with the Ravens and the Browns, which the Browns losing last week was big for them in their matchup as well. But I think Joe Mixon's going to come in and be a little more healthy in this one. Unfortunately, I did just trade him away in my redraft league, so I don't really want to watch him go off in this one. But I think he could have a nice game. I think this one, I think since he's going to win this one pretty easily, it could be close. I can see what you're saying, but I don't know. I just I just can't buy into this Detroit team, and I think Cincy's a good team as well. So give me Cincy in this one pretty easily. Next one I think is a little more interesting. This one's in London, Miami versus Jacksonville. The Jags still looking for their first win. Miami only has one win. Um, Man, I mean, Tua could be back this week, and I think that's a big, which we don't know because we're recording earlier on in the week. So we really don't know if he's going to play. Honestly, Brissett is also banged up, so he might not play either. So if neither quarterback plays, I would definitely take Jacksonville. I think they can definitely win this game, even with Tua in. And oh man, I'm so tempted to do it. You know what? I'm gonna do it. I think Jacksonville's gonna win. I hate myself for this. This could just be giving you guys a free game, but I really think this Miami team is totally spiraled. They're playing Malcolm Brown too much, even though did have a nice week last week. Devontae Parker's injured, Will Fuller's injured. This defense has not been good. They get gashed on the ground. James Robinson's probably gonna run all over them. I think Jacksonville's gonna win this game. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, you hit a lot of good points. I mean, Tua, he's throwing this week, but obviously it's too early to tell if he'll actually play. Even I do expect him to play, but I don't really think it'll make a difference. I mean, Miami hasn't been playing good football, like you mentioned. Drew and I were actually joking last week that the first London game of the year didn't involve the Jaguars, but here they are back again. It seems like every year they're playing in London, so back at their home field. And what better way to go into London with a win? I'm gonna agree with you, Chris. I think this is a game they could win and come out with. Uh, I'm looking forward to this game a little bit more than the last London game. Jaguars definitely can win this.
Yeah. I think this is going to be an interesting game. We'll have to see who comes out on top. We got a little bit of a difference there, so I'm looking forward to that one. But next up, we got Green in division rivalry here. Two top teams in the division as of right now, Green Bay and Chicago. Chicago coming off of a couple of kind of ugly wins, but at the same time, their defense is playing at an extremely high level right now. The Packers coming off of an emotional win against the Cincinnati Bengals, and since he's a good team as well, so that's a quality win in my opinion on the road as well. Gotta factor that in. I think I'll let you start this one. I think this is going to be a good game, but I'm curious to see where you go with this one.
Yeah, I think any division game is going to be a close fought battle. Um, Obviously, there's some momentum riding in from Chicago with, I believe, two straight wins for Justin Fields, obviously the Lions, and then Vegas. Obviously, Allen Robinson is nowhere to be found. They still got to get him more involved. Fields, he did take a couple hard shots in that game, so it wasn't just the hyperextension. He almost got a concussion at one point.
Yep.
So Dalton saw some action. I do think Fields will be good to go this game. And Green Bay, I mean, they just got to get their kicking situation figured out. And obviously, Mason Crosby was one of the best, so it doesn't happen all too often. So they should be fine. I really don't see any issues for Green Bay in this game, and they should roll in this one.
I mean, on paper, I agree, but this Chicago team, I mean, they are 3-2 right now, and I think you have to respect that. I am gonna go with Green Bay in the game, but I think Chicago has, similarly to that Philly Tampa Bay matchup. I mean, they're definitely a better team than Philly, in my opinion. I think they can absolutely win this game. They're at home in the Windy City. The Packers, almost lost last week. I didn't think they played that great, despite leaving a lot of points on the table, which both teams did. So I don't really. I don't really give them a benefit of the doubt. I think they played all right, but they didn't play spectacularly. Chicago's defense, their offense really hasn't done much because they haven't needed to. Where their defense has been awesome, and they went into Vegas last week and got the job done pretty easily in that game. So I think they will compete in this one. But next up, we have a very much less interesting matchup, probably one of the most boring of the week for me. Houston, Indianapolis. I don't even feel like breaking this down. They fought with the Patriots last week, but they lost. They're going to lose again this week to Indy. Indy coming off of a tough loss against the Ravens, and now they are playing for their playoff lives, in my opinion, because Tennessee is going to start running away with the division if they don't start picking up wins now, starting this week. So this is a must-win game for Wentz, who did look good last week against that tough Ravens secondary. But I'm going to take Indy easily in this game at home.
Yeah, and so will I. I mean, we were very concerned with the Colts, obviously starting 0-3, but I mean, since they lost on Monday night, they did show us a lot of good things. I mean, Carson Wentz looked good, Pittman looked good, Taylor looked good, defense got a couple fumbles. So even if they don't make the playoffs this season, there's still a solid team they can have playoff aspirations with next year. Houston obviously kept it close with the Patriots. Obviously, I think they're worse than what that game indicated. I'm going to take the Colts pretty convincingly in this one.
I mean, as of right now, this is a little bit off topic, but the Philadelphia Eagles look unbelievably. They look so smart right now, trading for these first rounders. They traded with Indy to get a conditional second round pick, which becomes a first rounder if Wentz plays a certain amount of snaps, I believe. And as
Yep.
of right now, Indy is 1-4, Miami is 1-4, which they also have one of Miami's picks as well. So they have, as of right now, they have 3 top 10 picks next year, and
Insane.
I think they're going to turn this. I think they're really going to turn it around fast. I'm not going to lie. Next year, I might be very in on Philly, depending on what they do with these draft picks and where they end up landing. But right now, they look incredibly smart. But that was a little off topic. But Indy, may come to regret that trade for Carson Wentz. We'll have to see. Maybe they'll make the playoffs. But next up, we got another matchup, which I mean, on paper, this one looks like a blowout scenario here for the Rams against the Giants, but I really have not been that impressed with the Rams the last few weeks. I don't think they played very good. I mean, they laid an egg against Arizona. They didn't look great against Seattle either. The Giants, though, are super injured. They may not have Daniel Jones, probably won't have Daniel Jones for the game. So any chance of the Giants keeping this one close or winning in an upset fashion at home, I think go out the window with that. I'm going to take the Rams. Um, and we'll move on. Next up, we got an interesting matchup here for both teams, I think. I think both teams need a win desperately bad right now. Washington football team kind of gave the game away against the Saints last week, in my opinion, which I know they're not playing this week, but the Saints have to be the most difficult team in the league to gauge. If I think they're bad, but they're 3-2, so I really don't know. Like, I don't think they're very good, but they do win games, so I'm not sure. And Washington, another team that's very tough to figure out right now. They've had some good offensive moments, but their defense has been absolutely putrid. And there is probably no worse remedy to a bad start defensively than the Kansas City Chiefs coming into town, because the Chiefs are pissed off right now. They're 2-3. Not the way they expected to start off the season, having a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover season so far. But I am going to take the Kansas City Chiefs in this one. I think they're going to win this game despite being on the road, despite playing a tough Washington team. I think they're going to come out and play well offensively and ignite this, what has been a very disappointing defense in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, Washington, they did not look as good as we thought they were going to be. The defense, especially, it's looked really bad. I mean, they gave up 33 points to the Saints, whose offense was very wishy-washy the entire season so far. So, I mean, Kansas City, they can roll up with no Clyde, no Hill. I think they'd be able to get it done until. And this is obviously a bounce-back game for Mahomes, who gave the ball away way too much last week.
Yep, definitely. And Mahomes hasn't looked amazing in every game, but I don't think he's getting as much help as he should be, especially that defense has been putrid too. Their defense has honestly been they might not make the playoffs because of that awful defense. Like, I know Mahomes is an unbelievable player. He's still the best quarterback in the league, without a doubt in my mind. But I mean, there's only so much he can do out there, man. They can't. No offense scores every drive down the field when their defense can't stop.
And we saw it in the Super Bowl.
Couldn't stop a parked car from scoring right now. I really don't know what he's supposed to do out there. He's trying to score 25 points every time he's going out there in every drive. Like, he's trying to put up multi touchdowns in one drive, which is impossible for the dude because that defense has been so unbelievably bad. It's honestly mind blowing. Like, they can't stop the run, they can't stop the pass. They got to figure that defense out. And the Chiefs have never really had a great defense. They don't need a great defense. They just need a defense that's, around, 20 to 25 in the league that can get some stops. Steve Spagnuolo loves to bring pressure, and they're just leaving their bad corners with bad safeties outside of Tyrann Mathieu on islands out there. And guys like Josh Allen, I mean, last week he averaged like 20 yards in a completion last week because he was just shredding that defense. It was,
And running it, too.
yeah, I mean, they had no answers for him. And honestly, I mean, I think they will for Taylor Heineke and co this week, but against a good offense, they have to figure it out somehow in some way. But a lot of season left, so we'll have to see what this Chiefs team ends up becoming. I'm not ruling them out. Mahomes is great. They got a lot of great players. We'll have to see. But we'll jump into the next game here, and another one that I am actually very excited for, Minnesota, Carolina. Carolina coming off of a couple losses in a row against Dallas, against Philly. have been kind of unimpressive the last couple weeks. Minnesota came off of a very unimpressive win to me, and they're now sitting at 2-3, trying to fight back into that division, but just beat the Lions, barely beat them, almost choked that game away. Luckily, we're able to knock down a long field goal, which seems like a common trend for us Lions fans. But anyways, Roman, I'll let you start this one. This is an interesting game in Carolina. Who do you have winning it?
Yeah, Carolina obviously started off a great 3-0, then kind of fell into decline, partially due to the loss of McCaffrey, who they could probably get back this week. So if they get him back, it should be a lot more competitive. Sam Darnold needs to look a lot more better. He had some costly turnovers in the game versus Philly, as I kind of mentioned earlier. Minnesota, though, I mean, they're dominant on defensively. Obviously, no Cook the past couple of games didn't make a difference for them. Madison ran all over the place. Even without the presence of Adam Thielen, I mean, he only had 2 catches, and they were on the last drive of the game. I mean, they still won pretty close. So, I mean, their offense, they're still pretty good. I'm not too concerned about that. When you take one weapon away, there's 2 others that can beat you. I'm actually going with Minnesota this game. I'll concur with Drew. Kind of unfortunate, though, because I thought the Panthers had high aspirations, and they looked like a good story, but it's kind of tumbling down for them.
I'm very happy you picked Minnesota in this one because I'm going to take Carolina. I think CMC comes back this week, and I think that's the reason that they have been taking these L's. They were able to get by the Texans without him, but without their best player, I mean, it's just expected that they're gonna come out and not be as good without their clear best player. And I expect him to be back this week. Maybe not as heavy of market share as he normally gets, which he basically gets everything. But I expect him to be out there in a pretty large workload again, and which is very welcome for my fantasy team too, because I could use a win after Drew handed me a nice L, my first L of the year last week, which that really sucked. But having CMC back is a good consolation prize for that, and also a good consolation prize for the Carolina Panthers, who are looking to get to 4-2. I think they get it done, but we'll have to see. This is going to be a good game. Next up, we have in my opinion, I mean, you could say it for either of these next 2 games, but this might be the game of the week for me. The Chargers, LA Chargers, red hot Chargers, coming fresh off of a huge win against the Browns in a game that was super enjoyable, probably the game of the year. Coming into town against Baltimore, who also played in an incredible game where they got dominated for about 2.5, 3 quarters against the Indianapolis Colts. Looked horrible, horrifically bad. And then Lamar Jackson decided, I'm done with this BS. I'm going to come out and just carry the team. And that's exactly what he went out there and did and got them a win. That's what MVP level players do. And as also why I put a bet on Lamar Jackson to win MVP, because that was an incredible performance. And they can't run the ball either. This is not the same Baltimore team that we're used to. They can't run the ball right now at all. They should have been able to run on the Colts. Teams have been doing it this year with decent effectiveness, and they can't do it flat out. So Lamar's forced to pass it, and honestly, I've been super impressed with the way he's throwing the ball. He was incredible. It actually was last night. He was absolutely incredible throwing to Hollywood Brown, Mark Andrews, and co. Should have Bateman back this week too, which I am very much looking forward to seeing what he adds to this offense as well. But I don't want to, short the Chargers' chances. I think they're also an extremely good, complete team. Herbert has been just as good, if not better, than Lamar Jackson this year. Mike Williams has been awesome. Austin Eckler has been awesome. This defense has not been so awesome, in my opinion. And oh man, this is super tough, man. This is a really good. I wish this was an island game on either Thursday or Saturday, or I mean Sunday night. So I really wish this was a primetime game, but I'm definitely gonna be watching this with high hopes for a good game. I am going to take Baltimore in this one, though. I think both teams, this is basically a toss up for me. I'm going to take the home team coming off the emotional win. I mean, both teams are, but I was very impressed with Baltimore's comeback. I've been impressed with them finding ways to get wins, and I think they're going to do it again this one. I think the Chargers at some point will hold the lead and will end up inevitably relinquishing that lead to Baltimore, and they'll get the win.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points. First of all, this game should have been flexed. I would rather prefer this at national primetime game. This is a game that the world needs to see. So I'm looking forward to it. Secondly, you're right about Lamar. I mean, the past 2 games, he was forced to throw it more, and he's delivered both times against the Broncos and the Colts. I think he nearly had 500 yards by himself total, but over 400 passing yards, and what, 4 something touchdowns? I mean,
Yep, four passing touchdowns.
that's just insane. Completion percentage nearly 80% on Monday night, so he pretty much did it all himself. that last quarter. Very impressive to see. Obviously, the Chargers are riding high themselves. I mean, you could make an argument for Herbert as MVP too. So two MVP caliber quarterbacks
Hmm.
going up against each other in this game. This is tough. Like you mentioned, this is going to be a toss-up. I think it's going to be very close, very competitive. I will take the Chargers though because I think where the Colts fell short where they couldn't maintain the lead. They obviously fell flat in the last quarter. They opened the door for the comeback. Where I think the Chargers they can get out that lead if they were in that situation, and then they keep scoring and extending the lead if possible. I think their offense was just much better than the Colts were. So I think this game could be a much more high scoring, but also a game that the Chargers can maintain.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one for sure. But we'll jump into the next game, which is equally as high stakes, high profile game. Also, could easily be the Sunday night football game here. Arizona going into Cleveland, two very, very good football teams here clashing. I'll let you jump into this one first since I went over that Baltimore LA game very in depth. But this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, obviously Cleveland fell short there to the Chargers last week. They looked pretty good though. Baker Mayfield, another good game on his end too. Cardinals, they didn't play their best game of football. I mean, they only won 17-10. I mean, there were certainly opportunities for them to lose that game. The Niners went for it like maybe 3 or 4 times throughout that game and got stopped on each one of them. So fair play to the Cardinals defense for stopping them when they needed to. That was probably the make or break of the game because they could have lost that game for sure. I think they're obviously going to have a much better game this week. All their weapons, Hopkins, he had a good game last week, should be much better. Rondale, AJ Green, even he's getting involved. They did lose their tight end
Max Williams.
Max Williams. He's out for the year, so that's
Tough.
unfortunate. They were bringing in some tight ends to work out, so we'll see if they fill that gap soon. This is going to be another good game, similarly to Chargers Baltimore. Highest scoring, I believe. A lot of great fantasy options in this game. Drew took Cleveland. Obviously, he's a homer for Cleveland. But I'm going to go with Arizona. I think this is going to be another great game. But, I mean, it's hard to take the team that's 5-0.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm taking Arizona as well, but I think this is going to be a really good game. Honestly, I think we can definitely end up being wrong about this one, but I think Arizona has proven that they're a good football team. They didn't look all that great last week, but their defense has been playing pretty well. They looked very good against a potent LA Rams offense. And Cleveland, I mean their defense really got shredded last week. I mean, it was ugly. Justin Herbert was throwing all over them. Austin Eckler was running all over them. I think Kyler Murray is a similarly talented quarterback to Justin Herbert, and he's got very good weapons. This Cleveland, they could be without Denzel Ward too. That's also, I believe he got banged up last week. I'm not sure what the injury was, but I am almost positive he got banged up last week. So we could be, that could have been who Hopkins would have had shadowed on him all game. But if they can get Rondell more involved, Edmonds is another guy where if he's healthy, he could be big for them because he wasn't very healthy last week. I think Arizona has a bounce back game on offense. It wins a very close game, but a very fun game to watch for sure. And this would be a big loss for Cleveland too. I mean, they're trying to keep pace. Pittsburgh got another win. I mean, since he's right there, and they also got obviously the Ravens are right out in front right now. So some tough competition. They can't afford too many more losses, but I think they're going to take one this week. Next up, another pretty fun game in my opinion. The Raiders coming off of a couple losses in a row, going into Denver Mile High Stadium to take on the Broncos, who did not look very good at all last week against Pittsburgh. Made a little bit of a comeback, but that game really wasn't that close. I think this is a get-right game for one of these two teams, but I am going to go with the Denver Broncos. I think not having John Gruden, having the distraction looming over the team, I think is huge for the Raiders. Derek Carr, honestly, has not looked good at all the last couple of weeks, and Joey Bosa said it best. If you can get pressure on him, he folds under that pressure. He, similarly to that, last week, I mean, this is another good defense, was the Bears last week. They got pressure on him. He didn't look good at all. Denver, similarly to me, I think they're even a better defense maybe than the Bears. I think they'll get pressure, and Teddy will do enough against this Raiders defense that doesn't scare me that much. I think they're going to win this game in Denver. If it was in Vegas, I'd probably take the Raiders, but I think I am going to take Denver at home.
Yeah, this could be another entertaining game. Honestly, I don't even know what a player on the Raiders would feel. Obviously, shock. I don't know if they even saw this coming. Obviously, they've been in the locker room with Gruden the entire season, so they got behind him. I felt like that team was really rallying around him and then Derek Carr, the quarterback. So definitely coming out of shock to, I'm sure, the players. But you also see a lot of times that in their first game as an interim coach, it's the special teams coach, now the interim. A lot of teams like to rally behind them and get them a win in their first game or coming weeks after. So they could come out a lot more inspired, but there's also a chance they come out very sulk and really bad. So it's a wild card for this week at least. But I'm still going to go with Vegas because I think they have much more better weapons on offense with Waller and Jacobs coming back, or he's been back from an injury, so he looks pretty good. Also, Renfro, Edwards got a little bit more involved, although he had a couple bad drops. Ruggs too. So I think this is a game where it'll be close down to the wire, but maybe Vegas can pull this one out for their interim.
Yeah, I would like Waller to have a nice game in this one because that's part of my 3 tight end barrage now is Mr. Waller, and he didn't have a very good week last week, but I expect them to get him involved more coming up because he has been a little bit less involved since week 1, and they haven't been as good of an offense. So I would expect bigger and better things for this offense, and they can definitely win this game for sure. It would be a huge win for their playoff chances. Honestly, both these teams need this win badly, and Denver has not looked good since they played those cupcake schedule at the start of the year. But this is a chance for both teams to bounce back in a big way. And we have a difference of opinion on that. And I've noticed that, I mean, we have a lot of different games that we're picking right now. And it's because this is a very good slate of football games. I know there's some teams on a bye, but a lot of those teams, I mean, the Jets suck. Atlanta sucks. I mean, I don't think New Orleans is anything special. And San Fran hasn't been anything to write home about either. So this is a lot of the bad teams are on bye, and I'm liking this slate a lot. I think it's going to be a good Sunday of football, but we've got a couple more games here to break down. Let's get into them. Dallas going into Foxborough against New England. I can't remember if it was last year or a couple years ago. His teams matched up, and it was a really ugly game. Not one that I enjoyed watching very much. I think it was a couple years ago, actually. But this one's tough because New England has not looked very good, in my opinion, but it is tough to win in Foxborough. I'm going to take Dallas in what I think is actually going to be kind of an ugly game. I expect the weather to play a factor because it always does in New England. It doesn't matter what time of year it is or what day it is. It always plays a factor. But this is a game I am looking forward to. I think it is going to be a fun one to watch. See what Bill Belichick has planned for Dak Prescott and this good offense. They're going to try to take somebody away. I would expect maybe they try to shut down the run because that's been very effective for Dallas. But at the same time, you got those alpha dog receivers in Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. So we'll have to see. Or maybe they'll try to shut down Travis Kelce Jr. and Dalton Schultz, who's been honestly incredible. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him have another good game. But I'm going to take Dallas. I do think this is going to be a good game.
Yeah, I'm sure that could be in the cards for that game. I mean, I know when it goes to Foxborough, they didn't look the same going into it. They can plan all they want, but they might fall susceptible to that defense who can shut down anyone on any given day. However, I mean, like you mentioned, New England could stop someone. They could take someone out of the plan. I really don't think it'll make a difference, though. I mean, they're just too overpowered on the offense. There's so many different weapons, versatile weapons that they can throw to with Lamb, Cooper, or Amari Cooper. Cedric Wilson, he's been getting a little bit more involved. Obviously, Schultz too, and then the two-head backfield of Zeke and Pollard. I mean, there's just too many weapons to stop. So I'd be surprised if they actually held them to a low score. But also on the other side of the ball, Trayvon Diggs, you might have a case for Defensive Player of the Year. Honestly,
He definitely has more than a case so far. He's getting 6 picks in 5 games.
It seems like he's getting multiple picks over the last couple of games. He's looking really good right now. So he'll probably get matched up to Jacoby Myers, who is probably the best receiver. Obviously, New England's run game has not looked great recently. I mean, Damian Harris had a good game last week.
He's also a little banged up too. He wasn't on the on our injury report.
And he also had a costly fumble last week too. So, I mean, the run game has not looked good at all. I mean, Mac, I like him. He's been doing pretty well. Just taking what the defense gives him. But in this game, I think Dallas is just way too overpowered in this game. So I'm gonna go with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, man, for sure. And I had a couple first in a row. My apologies on that. So I'll let you finish these last two. Seattle, Pittsburgh. How are we feeling about this one? Sunday Night Football, Pittsburgh. I mean, honestly, both teams need to win this game. No Russell Wilson. How are we thinking we're here, Roman?
Yeah, I mean the Geno Smith experience, it'll be interesting. So I mean he had that one drive where he went all the way on the
Yeah.
field for a touchdown, but you also gotta take into account that they didn't have any tape on him, they didn't expect to see him. So he also threw a pick on the second drive he had. Pittsburgh though, Big Ben looked a lot better last week. Juju out for the year, so you gotta get Claypool more involved. Obviously, Najee looking good too. I don't know. This could be a very ugly, boring game with Geno Smith and Big Ben, depending on what kind of players show up. Seattle has the weapons to win. Their weapons I would consider better than Pittsburgh's. However, it just depends on Geno Smith. He's obviously more mobile, so he might run a little more. You obviously want the game plan for Seattle to be the same with Russ and without, but obviously you can't have that. So I think Seattle could win. However, I'm gonna take Pittsburgh because I think their defense could force a lot of pressure. I'm not taking them with a whole lot of conviction though, but this could be a very ugly game.
I'm taking them with a lot of conviction. I think they're going to win this game easily. They have Najee Harris. He went off last week, and he's been awesome for them. No Juju kind of stinks, but Claypool and Deontay are more than capable of carrying the freight. I think Pittsburgh's defense is going to dominate Seattle's offense, and I would definitely be willing to start them in fantasy against. Normally you see Seattle on the schedule, like, no, you can't play them. But, I mean, with Geno Smith starting with no Russell Wilson, I think that is absolutely, especially for this good of a defense, I think they can absolutely be started. I think Pittsburgh honestly blows them out. I think this is going to be an ugly game.
I
It's in Pittsburgh. I think Seattle just doesn't have their defense stinks, and they have no quarterback. So I just don't see it.
I do have a quick question though. I don't want to talk about fantasy too early though, but what do you do if you have Seattle's weapons? If you have Metcalf, Lockett, Carson, you kind of have to play them though because they are players that you can't really bench, but you know that they're not going to be as good as they normally would have. But so what would you suggest players who, well, fantasy owners who have them, what should they do?
I, I, uh, I mean, I'm playing them with lowered expectations, I guess. I mean, I guess if you have really good options like a Chase Claypool, maybe you throw him out there, but over these guys. But I would expect them to lean on Chris Carson if he's out there or Alex Collins because that's usually what happens. The backup quarterback comes in, you run the ball more. But I mean, Metcalf and Lockett are just straight up too good of players to bench. I can't do it to myself. They might go out there and suck, but somebody's got to catch passes for this team. Geno Smith's an NFL quarterback, not a very good one, but he's an NFL quarterback, so he has to be able to deliver some balls to these guys. And Lockett hasn't been very good as is, but I think you got to leave him in there, man. You just don't watch. You take some tubs, don't watch the game. Just hope that. I mean, hey, DK looked pretty good with Geno. So he had a touchdown. So maybe he'll be the more valuable of the two of them. But I would probably still throw Lockett in my starting lineup, especially with the bye weeks coming. So I wouldn't panic, but I also don't feel great about it. I guess.
Yeah,
I don't
me
know if
too.
that clears up anything
No,
for you.
yeah, or trade them if you can.
Yeah,
But
that's it. You could always try to sell, especially DK. I mean, Lockett hasn't been playing very good, so you're probably selling low on him. But for Metcalf, I mean, he's been awesome, and he was last week with Geno, so you can use that touchdown to maybe lateral move. I'm trying to think of maybe a Justin Jefferson, Terry McLaurin. I would do
Ridley
either
maybe.
Ridley. I mean, with the bye, maybe that's a little tougher, but
Yeah.
definitely guys like Jefferson. Um, Jamar Chase, I would definitely do Jamar Chase straight up. Honestly, for either one of them, if you can flip Lockett or DK into Jamar Chase, you need to do that. That's a no-brainer for me. But we'll jump into the next game here, the last one of the week, Monday Night Football game. I'm looking forward to this one, a rematch from last year. A good game between these two an ugly game for that matter too, because I remember, the both offenses not being very good in the game, but Buffalo going into Tennessee on Monday night. This is a game I'm looking forward to. But Roman, I'll let you start this one off again.
Yeah, from what I can remember from last year's game, I'm pretty sure Buffalo got their break speed off of, but it was pretty convincingly for the Titans. This might have been one of those games where he got flexed because of COVID. This might have been like a
It
Tuesday night
did.
game.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
So
Tuesday night.
yeah,
Tuesday night.
so Tennessee absolutely blew them out last
They
year. I
did.
think I think Buffalo they'll probably win this year. However, the Tennessee they have the weapons to win. I'm not sure what Julio's status looks like, but they do have obviously AJ Brown back. They need to get him more involved. He hasn't been as good as I thought he was going to be. Obviously, Henry though, whenever you have him, you have a chance. But if Buffalo can hold them, it should be a close game. I think this is going to be another good game. I'm taking Buffalo though.
Yeah, I agree with you. Both you two taking Buffalo. I'm going to go with them in this one as well. I think it's going to be a good game in Tennessee. Derrick Henry, they did bottom up last year, but still took the L. I expect Buffalo's run defense has been incredibly good this year. It's not like they have one really high level superstar. They rotate like 8 dudes, and it's honestly unlike anything I've seen. And it's a good strategy for some other teams to maybe implement is keeping that defensive line fresh, and that really helps them get pass rush. Russell was a great pick as
Russo, they
well.
look good, yeah.
He looks really good, but he doesn't play a ton of snaps out there. So he's allowed to go out there and be fresh and play with reckless abandon on 50% of snaps when he's got other guys that they can be relied on to fill in nicely. So I really do respect. I think that's something that's gone under the radar for this Buffalo team. It's something that I've been very interested in. And then don't even mention Josh Allen and co. He's been great. Honestly, I'm waiting for that big Geeks game. I think it comes this week. He's been fine. He didn't have a great week last week, but did have a really nice deep reception. I think this is the squeaky wheel week for Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs connection. These touchdowns aren't going to go to Emmanuel Sanders and Dawson Knox all season, but and this Tennessee secondary is, excuse my French, dog shit. Like they can't cover a parked car out there. I expect Josh Allen might throw for 500 yards in this game. I mean, if Tennessee can keep up, I just don't see a way. I would never run the ball. Honestly, I wouldn't run it one time. Maybe with Josh Allen, I would, but I'd be airing it out because this Tennessee secondary is just trash. But yeah, that'll do it for the pick'em for this week. This is I honestly I would go as far to say this is my favorite slate so far of any of the first 6 weeks. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. We have a ton of differences. So somebody's going to be pissed off probably at the end of the week. Someone probably will have a convincing lead. We'll have to see. Definitely looking forward to that. But let's jump into the fantasy picks now. And Roman, why don't you give us Drew's first, and I'll go with one. I'll go with one of mine. You can give us both yours, and I'll finish it off. But give us both the Drews right now.
Yeah, so Drew's first pick, wide receiver for the Eagles, Davonte Smith. I like that pick a lot. I think, especially if it's a negative game script for Philly, they have to pass it late, score some touchdowns late in the game. Smith would definitely be a good option for that matter. Seems to be Hurts' number one target, especially with Goddard out. This could be a huge game for him. And then the second player was Dawson Knox, tight end for Buffalo, kind of riding in on that high he's had for the past couple of games. Definitely a must-start tight end, I believe. If you have him, put him in. Has that upside for sure. Maybe one, maybe two touchdowns a game. So, whereas other tight ends also are more tight end or touchdown dependent, I think Knox could be one of those tight ends who could salvage a fantasy off yards as well. So, I think both of them are good starters.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I said about I love Jalen Hurts this week. He's not one of my fantasy picks. I think he's a clear must start, too high level player. But I think Davonte Smith against this banged up Tampa Bay bad secondary is perfect. They're gonna have to throw the ball to win this game. They do it every week. Smith has looked good. I think he's gonna have a nice week. I'd start him as a wide receiver too. And then Dawson Knox. He doesn't get a ton of volume, but he's a big play guy. He's in a high-powered offense with Josh Allen, who's going to find him if he gets open. He's got as high of a chance at a touchdown as almost any tight end outside of the big three, big four, whatever you want to call it at this point. So I definitely like him as a start this week, a top 10 tight end for sure. I would probably still have him as a lower-end tight end because they got a little lower-end tight end one because they got a lot of other targets on this team, but I have no problem putting him in my lineup in a plus matchup here against Tennessee. I think there's going to be points to be had for this Buffalo offense. But I'll jump into my first one, and that is one of my favorite receivers in the league, a guy that I think has been disrespected because he had a very quiet rookie season, but was awesome on Monday night this week, and that is Michael Pitman Jr. I think he has been very solid so far this season and had a nice first touchdown of the year last week, a very nice grab over the Baltimore secondary player. I think Pitman Jr. is similarly to Davonte Smith, a wide receiver too. This is a fantastic matchup against this Houston secondary who has not been very good at all. I think Pittman comes in. I think he goes out there, gets 100 yards, or gives you a touchdown. One of the two. I'm starting him as especially in PPR. I'm definitely starting him confidently as a wide receiver too.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I'm also starting him in my dynasty league, so I'm very looking forward to what he
Yeah,
can put up. But
I would be.
even in real life too, I mean, this is what you expect with Pittman. That's why we kind of drafted him. Obviously, you're getting his time to shine with T.Y. Hilton now. This is what you can expect going forward too. I mean, with him moving as the actual wide receiver one on that team.
Oh yeah, he's got it
Um,
locked down now.
for
He's
sure.
a great player, man. I
Yeah.
really enjoy watching him play. I think he's a guy that because of that bad rookie season, he's drafted right behind T Higgins. A lot of people sleep on him, but he is a legitimate wide receiver and one of my favorites in the league. I think he's a really entertaining player while he's out there and off the field. He does a lot of things that I don't know. I enjoy his personality a lot too, so that makes it. I'm going to be rooting for him for sure this week, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, but yeah, overall great pick. So for sure, I'm gonna go into my first pick, running back from Miami, Miles Gaskin, kind of riding off the high he had the past couple weeks. Obviously, had a good matchup against Jacksonville in London, so it's a 9 a.m. Eastern time game. I think Miami. This could be a very bad game for them, depending on what quarterback they have, Tua or Brissett or even Sinnott, who's a third stringer. But they could run the ball a whole lot more. I mean, Jacksonville isn't particularly good on defense, so we'll see what kind of game script they come out in. But obviously, you can use it more than just in the run game. They also has pass catching work as well. So definitely coming off that high, I think he's definitely startable this week in leagues.
Yeah, I mean, with Gaskin, I'm maybe a little bit lower on him. But I think we have Jacksonville. Me and you both have Jacksonville winning this game, so they may need to play some catch up. They're missing a lot of other weapons. I don't trust his coaching staff to put him out there as much as they did last week. Because the week before he had 2 rushes for 3 yards and 0 targets. Like he played like 10% of the snaps. Last week he was back up in the 60s, I believe. So that was nice to see. But he's been really up and down. That was his first good week of the year. I'm not chasing the big week and confidently starting him like just because I have to and taking out an Antonio Brown. I'm trying to think of some other Davonte Booker. I'm starting those guys over him. Chase Claypool, Michael Pitman Jr. I'm starting all of them over him. But I think that he has the opportunity to be a low end number 2 running back this week. I'm not all the way bought in. I like him as a flex for sure. I definitely like him as a flex in a week where there's not, I mean, running backs injured all over the place, 4 teams on bye. You might need to play him. And I know Drew will definitely have him in a starting lineup with both Elijah Mitchell and Alvin Kamara being on bye. So he'll definitely be a guy that is following your advice and starting him. I'm a little bit lower, but I see the definite upside. I think he's either going to go out there and suck or he's going to give you a nice week. So that's kind of how I see him. But why don't you give us your last name here and then I'll give you mine.
Yeah, so my second pick is a wide receiver. Even though I took Denver to lose, I think Cortland Sutton could have a good game as well. Even Tim Patrick, I think the duo of
Yeah.
those two can be good for
Yeah,
fantasy.
definitely.
Obviously, someone's got to catch passes over there. Judy's still out; doesn't look like he'll be back anytime soon. Bridgewater quarterback there, so those two have had a good connection so far this year. I think that could just continue this week where with Vegas, they have a very susceptible defense. Excuse me. I think Sutton would be a good play this week too.
Yeah, I like you adding Tim Patrick in there as well as a little mention because I think he can be, especially I have him on my bench. I'm not going to be starting him this week, but I think he's a solid start. If you need, a wide receiver 3, there's some injuries like we mentioned, but there's also some bye weeks and like a guy like Calvin Ridley. You could be or Debo. Maybe you need to fill in for one of those two. I like Patrick to do that and give you a nice, especially in PPR. I definitely like him because he can go out there. He's going to go out there and give you at least 6 for 60, something like that. Because he gets plenty of volume. But I really like Sutton. He had a nice week last week. Unfortunately for me, I was playing Drew, who had him in, and that was one of the players that handed me an L. But I think Sutton is a super talented player with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. As long as he's there, he's going to be, flex wide receiver 2 level with plenty of upside. He can go out there and give you stinkers from time to time, and he definitely will do that. But his upside is he's a guy I'm playing every week as that low end number 2 with plenty of upside. So I like that in a plus matchup. He's got plenty of volume opportunity. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll give you my last name now. I'm going with another receiver as well. I got a couple other guys. I'll bring up Davonte Booker. Tough matchup against the Rams, but they got nobody else. Saquon will be out. I'm going to be putting a heavy bid on him and because I might need him for next week because I have Bipocalypse on my roster. So I'm gonna be putting a heavy bid on Booker trying to get him because I think Quan's going to miss a couple weeks. Zach Ertz is another one. It's gross, but Tampa Bay, No Goddard. He's going to go out there. I'm starting him in Dynasty because I have to. Without Goddard, I got both guys. So I do think he has plenty, especially in a PPR. I think he can give you a nice week. Somebody's going to catch the ball for this Bucs team outside of Davonte Smith, and I think he's the perfect guy to step into that role. But my actual pick is none other than Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Chase Claypool, who I did just mention right before that. I'm He had a very nice week last week. Was awesome, honestly, and took a lot of volume from my boy Deontay Johnson, who I also think is great. He's a must start every week. We don't need to talk about him, but Claypool is now for me entering that territory. He's a wide receiver too. He's been very solid the last few weeks. Big Ben's been starting to find him, establish that connection from last year. And there's no Juju Smith-Schuster, and I think that really is the key from taking him from that guy you throw in your flex and he's kind of that boom bust, can win you a week and can give you a zero. Now I think he enters that wide receiver, safe wide receiver two with the upside of being a top five guy at a weekly basis. So against the Seattle secondary, I wish Russ was playing in this one because I think that this game could be more of that shootout type a little bit with Geno Smith. There's a chance he does. I think there is a little risk because I think he could, they could blow him out. Like I said, I think they might do that. But Claypool has a very good chance of being part of the reason they blow him out in that game because they're going to pass the ball and they're going to have success doing it. So Claypool, like him as a number two receiver this week. A little bit of risk, a lot of reward, especially in a week with some buys.
Yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh can kind of do whatever they want on offense. I think Seattle's defense is not very good. They just cut one of their corners, Trey Flowers, I think today as we're recording. So, I mean, their defense is not really something to worry about. But
No.
yeah, so if Pittsburgh, if they want to run the ball early, they run the ball. If they want to throw it early, they're going to throw it. So I understand your concerns with him, but obviously with Juju being out, I was comfortable playing Claypool before if I had him, but now you obviously got to put him in. So nothing to really worry about there. And like you mentioned, though, if it is back and forth, you're definitely going to see a lot more work from him. It also just depends on what kind of Ben Roethlisberger we see, because obviously it was good last week, but it might not always be that guy. So we'll see. But I mean, anyone on Pittsburgh, you're pretty much putting in there because of that potential. So especially against Seattle too. So I like the
Yeah.
pick.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with all that. But that'll do it for this week. This is going to be a fun week of football for sure. Roman, this was a fun episode. We got a lot of all me, you, and Drew, despite him not being on here, have a good amount of differences in the pick'em this week. I think that's going to be fun to watch and see. Who can gloat about this because likely the winner this week is going to take over first, in my opinion, because there's a lot of differences. So very much looking forward to that, man. It was a fun episode. Thank you guys all for listening. We really appreciate it. Leave a comment, comment down below some of these big games, like the Baltimore Chargers game, also like the Browns Cards game, comment who you think is going to win that one, who you think the MVP is, and answer our question about maybe who are the Bills the actual favorite? Is there a team that you think can knock them off? Anything, we'll respond to all that, but we all appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.
Peace.